This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Yeah, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine. I won't let anybody blow it out. No, I'm gonna let it shine. Yeah, I won't let anybody blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. I won't let anybody blow it out. Oh, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, yeah.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me you're listening to a podcast while we're recording?
I am, actually. It's by the FwdRad.io White Man, and it's definitely not us.
That's all right.
Hello and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. Thank you so much for joining us today. As always, we are here with Mark Sandlin. How you doing today, Mark?
Woohoo! I have coffee.
Yeah, we are recording in the morning, as is our recent habit. In case you were wondering, if you're new to our show, you were just listening to David Wimbush of the Collection Band, which is a fantastic band that's currently on tour. You can check them out at thecollectionband.com. You can find links to all of our music at our website, moonshinejesus.podbean.com. It is winter, or the winter is coming, in the words of the Stark family. So if you are interested in a hoodie, then you can get those at moonshinejesus.getstuck.com. And Mark, I gave one of these to a friend of mine named Daniel.
Yeah.
And Daniel emailed me like 2 days later and said, that is the most comfortable sweatshirt I have ever worn. And we keep telling people this and nobody believes us. But now we have third-party verification.
I know. It seems really bad that we keep repeating ourselves about this. It is really, truly, I am not a pullover hoodie kind of guy. That is like my favorite long sleeve shirt that I own at this point. And for hoodies, for any shirt, it's hard to just, it seems silly that it would be that exciting that a hoodie feels that good, but it does.
It does. It really does. So anyway, so you can get those at moonshinejesus.getstuck.com. The weather is changing. Like, that's kind of the big topic of conversation right now in the world.
Right.
Speaking, but particularly in our neck of the woods in the Southeast, I didn't see the sun for 14 days, Mark. I mean, it rained for 14 days.
Yeah, you should see my yard right now. I'm really embarrassed about my yard. It's just, I mean, one, it's either been raining or the yard's just been mush, so I haven't been able to cut grass. Yeah, I mean, and then you flip the story. My best friend who moved across to California, they like get excited if they have 0.2 inches of rain.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, we were in a drought. Well, we still are in a drought, like, even after 14 days of rain. And so, last week, my son, like, wakes up and sees it's still raining outside. And he looked at me and was like, God, Dad, can you stop saying we're in a drought now? Can we stop talking about the drought now? I'm like, actually, technically speaking, we're still in a drought after 14 days of rain.
You know what, though? You know what this is proof of?
What's that?
That God does not like you.
Yes, that's exactly how God works.
God is mad at you and the people who live around you, therefore.
Well, yeah.
Hey, David, and don't try to pawn this off on some kind of liberal global warming crap.
I mean, that, to be honest, like that's how people tend to view the weather. That's how a lot of Christians tend to view the weather. It's
Right.
a cosmic judgment on wherever the weather happens to be happening.
When it rains, it's God's tears, David, and you know that.
Or pee.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
how it works in my family, at least.
Thank you for that, David. Thank you.
I mean, like, all joking aside, though, there was a very, very serious weather.
Yeah, no kidding.
That happened this past week. I mean, I'm sure everybody who's listening has seen the pictures in South Carolina. It's stunning to see that much water in a place. I mean, and it's stunning to see people try to drive through it at the same time. But having recently lived in South Carolina, I know people who probably did stuff like that. Like it's stunning just to see the amount of rainwater that just kind of flooded Columbia, South Carolina, in the area.
Yeah,
people are still without water. People are still without electricity. It's crazy.
Yeah. Just to put it in perspective, I saw a meme about this. In Florida, that giant lake down in southern Florida, Lake Okeechobee, holds 1.1 trillion gallons of water. In just the past few days, 4.4 trillion gallons of water have fallen on South Carolina.
Wow.
I mean, that is just astounding to think of. And we're not trying to say this is the worst water disaster that's ever happened. All of the water disasters have been just horrific. This happens to be the most recent one.
Well, and that's the thing, is that what scientists are telling us is that these are going to be happening more and more frequently. Like the extreme weather events are going to be happening more and more frequently, not because God is getting more and more erratic.
Oh, come on.
Or has gone off the...
We're just giving God more reasons to be mad at us. Is that what you're saying?
Is it because South Carolina took down the Confederate flag? Is that why?
Yeah.
I'm surprised that hasn't come up, to be real honest.
There has been those who have already connected this to gay marriage, and that, who was it? One of the television persons.
Why South Carolina? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Oh, no. This is how they said it, though, because it was a national thing, and South Carolina is just the beginning. God is going to flood all of America like he did with Noah. That's what was being said. One of the crazy conservative television personalities. I don't pay close enough attention to remember which one, but that's what he said. He said that God, this was the beginning, that God's going to actually flood all of America, just like God did with Noah. So, yep.
Okay, so clearly we're taking the Noah story seriously, like literally, like he's taking the Noah story literally. Did he miss the memo about God saying, "I'm never"? I
won't do that again.
Like,
Right?
come on, you didn't read far enough in the story, man. And why are you starting with South Carolina? Why don't you? I mean, like, wouldn't it make more sense to start with someplace like, I don't know, liberal bastions like Northern California, where I was ordained, right?
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the crazy thing, though, and that's what disturbs me about all of this is you see the conservative wing of Christianity always starting to try to deem any kind of natural disaster as the judgment of God over something. Sure. And not only is that really, really bad theology, but it's also a distraction from what's really going on.
Yes, exactly. Like, people are actually dying in this, and it's not because God is mad. And there are ways that we can help to, try to prevent some of this stuff.
Exactly. The discussion should be about global warming and how that has an impact on all of these weather systems, and why we're seeing an increase in this, and that we are literally killing people because we can't give up our gas. We're killing people because of all of the production that we do in our nation and the crap we let off into the air when we're doing it. That's where the discussion should be. If we're really bothered by these events, we shouldn't see God in these events outside of that God's with those who are suffering.
Sure, exactly. Like, if your theology is telling you that God is responsible for this kind of destruction, and God is kind of playing this cosmic game of chess where God is saying, "Hey, I don't like what's happening in the United States." Bloop, he presses the flood button, and it's just it's kind of second grade thinking. Like it really is. Like I have elementary school kids,
Right.
and like, that's very second grade thinking. It lacks all kinds of nuance. But the other part of that is that there's this other dynamic that's happening within our country, particularly in regards to national disaster response at the federal level.
Right.
And we've seen time and time again where natural disasters have happened, and they are a massive expense on the federal government.
Oh, yeah.
And they are becoming more and more frequent because of climate change. And you have senators who are opposing funding, aid to devastated regions.
Unless it's in their own state.
Right, exactly. It's ironic how
then all of a sudden it's okay.
I'm simultaneously like angered and happy.
Right, exactly. I'm glad they're requesting. Yeah, I'm glad they're requesting it, but it's too much like their own personal life where if it impacts me, it matters, and if it impacts somebody else, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's a wholly self-centered kind of understanding of this kind of thing. I'm thrilled that South Carolina is getting federal aid, and that the senators swallowed their pride enough,
right,
to kind of go back on their previous stances. When Hurricane Sandy hit the New Jersey shore, they opposed the funding for that.
Exactly.
So it's nice to see them come around to the idea that the federal government has a really important role when an entire state is devastated.
Right.
And it's very important.
And it's interesting because part of what they're doing but don't realize they're doing is they're saying that when someone suffers, it is the responsibility of the government to step in and help, which sounds a lot like socialism.
It is kind of, isn't it?
Well, I mean, yeah, it is a version of democratic socialism.
It's the absolute version of democratic socialism. It shows the importance and the strength when the federal government is actually acting in a way that's appropriate and healthy to actually help when nothing else will.
Right, exactly.
You can take that, you can extrapolate that kind of suffering out to things like poverty too. It's not just
that's exactly. I was very careful at my wording because that's exactly what I was hoping we were pointing to.
See, you and I were on the same wavelength.
That's a very frightening thing for you, man.
What people don't see is we're texting each other back and forth while we're talking.
You don't want to be on the wavelength I'm on, man. It does not end up in good places.
Okay, so we've got two things going on. We've definitely got climate change, correct?
Correct.
And we've got kind of this new response from South Carolina federal government. So you've got this idea, and I wonder if the two are connected. This idea that we shouldn't help people who are suffering, and also this idea of a God who punishes based on sinfulness or based on what God doesn't like with weather patterns. It's both this kind of punitive, be punished for what I don't like about you kind of mentality in both cases.
Punitive, non-redemptive God.
Exactly.
Exactly. Go ahead.
And that's essentially what you have with people who say things like earthquakes or tornadoes or hurricanes hit places because of sin or because of it. I mean, it seems ridiculous that you have to say this out loud, but but that's this kind of very ridiculous notion of a God who punishes us in real time,
right,
and is actively trying to kill people. I mean, it's a
right.
very murderous vision of God.
It is, and it's. I would make the argument that when you look at an overarching theology of the Bible, it's not a particularly correct understanding of God. You could point to a few very specific things and say, well, that's who God is. But when you look at the overarching theology, that's not the God we understand, and that might be an interesting thing for us to do. We've just talked about this understanding of God in nature that's judgmental and non-redemptive and looking to take out violence on God's own creation
and in so much total control.
Right. Maybe on the flip side, what we can do is turn the story on that and look a little bit into what does God look like in creation when creation is actually a source for connecting to God.
Moonshine Jesus, nobody in the sky. Moonshine Jesus, baby, alright. Moonshine Jesus, a surprise and delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine?
Hello and welcome to round 2 of the Moonshine Jesus Show. So, David, look, we've spent a lot of time talking about an understanding of God and God's relationship with creation that is hurtful, damaging, and theologically a bit screwed up, right?
Just a scooch.
Just a scooch. Just a smidge. Just a smidge.
Just a little.
So I think it would be helpful for us to kind of investigate and think about a more positive understanding of God in relationship to creation. I mean, it is weird to think of God as creator and then using creation as a horrible thing and even destroying creation. So
and it's also equally weird to kind of try to look out at the world and look out at creation and nature and all that is,
right,
and not see some kind of connection.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me think of, was it Lily Daniels who said, you know, in any fool can find God in the sunset?
Well, yeah, okay. Here's my thing about that. Like a couple of years ago, Lillian Daniels came out and she was very critical of the spiritual but not religious folks who talked about finding God in nature and finding God in the sunset. And she talked about how easy that was. Now, I mean, I'll be honest, like I understand scientifically how sunsets work and why they turn those colors and all this other. I understand the science behind that.
Right.
In a way, for me, it can be very hard to look at a sunset and see God in that because I can dissect it scientifically. Me, I think it's actually harder to do that.
You see, and I take a completely different bent on that. Because I think this is going to be a really not exact quote of it, but she said, you know, any fool can find God in the sunset. It's hard to find God in the messiness of church. And I'm like, well, exactly. I don't think your argument's working here. Like, of course, I mean, why would I want it to be hard? I mean, it's working from a false premise of it doesn't have value if it's not hard.
Well, and what I think people who criticize folks who see and experience God in nature,
right,
is there seems to be this fundamental lack of awe, this lack of being able to be in awe and allow yourself to be in awe, which is essentially an arrogant position in a way, because awe is all about realizing your smallness and the greatness of other things.
Right.
Like, and so really it's very self-centered. As much as you want to make it about community and not being self-centered, not seeing God in nature and not being able to feel awed in nature has a certain sense of selfishness to it.
Oh, I completely agree. And it's fortuitous that we're talking about this the day after Diana Butler Bass's book released, because her new book, David, I mean, the first half of it in particular, in terms of our conversation right here, is just astounding in terms of understanding how important it is to connect with God through creation and be in awe of God through that.
Absolutely. And I feel like Diana's book really does a good job of paying homage basically to the old way of looking at nature.
Absolutely.
But kind of translating it in a more modern scientific understanding without losing that awe and its connection to God.
Yeah.
And I found it, for me personally, as someone who can go and dissect nature and kind of try to take God out of it sometimes, it was a great experience to read that book and to have some of that reframed. I was really struck by her stuff on sky, about how, you know, God being up in the sky, and she kind of shifts our view to understand sky as the atmosphere, which is all around us. It's like
it surrounds us. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful. She, the most simple way to put this is, she takes a very vertical God and makes our understanding more horizontal.
Absolutely. She puts God at that horizon.
Yeah. Yeah. And an accessible horizon, not, you know, but that's what I think that we all need to do a better job at. In the first half, we were talking about this very removed judgmental God that the kind of more right-wing version of Christianity wants to do, because, you know, you can control that God a lot more, because it's God, the understanding of God is only accessible to a very few people.
Exactly.
And what we're talking about now, in terms of if you can connect with God through anything, makes God very accessible to all of us. And that's much more difficult to control because we all have our own relationship and understanding and experience of God through God's own creation.
In my context as an Episcopalian, it makes me think the idea of blowing apart the idea of sacraments to where they're not just these 2 or these 7, depending on your perspective, but everything being a sacrament, everything revealing God and everything being in communion with God, so that everything you are experiencing is a sacrament, whether it's, listening to this amazing podcast by the 2 most erudite white men on the planet. Wait a minute. Are
you telling me you're listening to a podcast while we're recording?
I am, actually. It's by the 2 most erudite white men, and it's definitely not us.
That's all right.
Or going out and playing with your kids, cooking a dinner, like the holiness of those everyday things. I mean, in a way, it's a really ancient concept, but the way Bass's book presents this, frames it in this really beautiful, almost modern way. I love it.
I mean, it's what she does with everything she writes about. She does this amazing job of taking historical context, her own personal context, blending them together with really outstanding theology and giving it a contemporary context and a contemporary meaning and trajectory. I mean, she's done that with everything she's ever written, but I think that this book is the kind of the peak of how amazing she is at it. Like, it all comes together in an unbelievable way in this book.
Yeah, I think there's kind of this turn in her work right now where I feel like she's inviting us into her experiences more so. Instead, I feel like she's inviting us to kind of be called again back to a grounded faith, which is what her book is called.
Right.
And to kind of be connected to the earth. One of the things I appreciated so much was how she drew from so many different religions, and
exactly.
how she drew on their similarities of their connectedness to the earth. And I think one of the things that we've done in 2 ways, really, in the modern Christian world is that we've gotten so disconnected from nature. One, by viewing it as something to dominate or as a God who uses it to punish.
Right.
And 2, by being so rational about it that we can't have an almost mystical experience within it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, what you just said made me think it's really interesting that when God uses creation to punish, then creation is a tool rather than a place to experience God. Like,
exactly.
By using it as a punishment, it removes God from creation. And so that kind of world makes it much more difficult to find God in it because God isn't in it, God is using it.
That's a great point. I love that. I love that idea because if it's a tool, then God's not going to be in the actual tool.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. So, I mean, if you can't tell, Mark and I are big fans of this book. I feel like personally, it has helped. I mean, it has helped me spiritually in a very personal way just from reading it in the past couple of weeks. There were moments where I was reading her work about water in the world that I had to put the book down because like the insight wasn't presented like a hammer, but it was so overwhelming that I just had to stop reading and just to think and reflect and to experience it. I mean, it was amazing. Yeah.
I honestly think, no joke, Diana's a friend, so I'm trying to remove myself from that. I honestly think with where the trajectory of Christianity is going, that this is one of the most important books in a very long time, because it is. I've said this before. It is liberating God from the institutionalized church. The church has had a tight hold on God and tried to make God a little bit removed. This book has liberated God from that and does it in such a beautiful and sophisticated way. It's amazing.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, going back to where we started with Lillian Daniels' thing about, criticizing spiritual but not religious who find God in sunsets.
Yeah.
And essentially what Diana's book is doing is saying, why isn't the church listening to these people who find God in these unexpected and amazing places?
Exactly.
Isn't there wisdom to listening to where God is already moving? And if God is moving in nature and then present in that way, shouldn't the church be paying attention to that rather than trying to protect its own?
And she's not just saying, shouldn't the church be doing that? She's saying, historically, the church has always done that. You shouldn't have ever stopped.
Exactly.
I mean, in a lot of ways, if people will pay attention to this book within the church, this could actually help churches be vibrant again.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, I'm afraid that a lot of churches will ignore it, but it is, in a lot of ways, a map back to understanding God in a more healthy way, which I think would then help the church not be seen as hypocritical as it's seen, nowadays.
Wouldn't it be a gift if the church began to see God and to present God in this redemptive and integrated way rather than this punitive and brutal way?
Yeah. Imagine churches doing that and then all of a sudden having people interested in attending.
Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Won't you shine a light?
Hello and welcome back to round 3 of the Moonshine Jesus Show. This is where we revisit our hashtag game from the previous week and have a little bit of fun. So last week we had a pretty good hashtag.
Yeah.
Generated some gameplay.
And good gameplay.
Good gameplay. Every single one of them were solid.
Yeah.
Our hashtag last week was the Pope should meet me because. This was in honor of the Honorable Kim Davis and that guy, the Pope, who came to visit. And we had some really good suggestions up there. I think probably my favorite just came across just a few hours ago from Chris at C4Shay on Twitter. The Pope should meet me because I survived teaching high school with the last name Cox. If that doesn't earn me sainthood, I mean, that's pretty accurate. I mean,
yeah, it is pretty accurate, but it is not my favorite one.
Oh, it's not your favorite. What was your favorite one, Mark?
My favorite one came from at Becky Seville. I'm a state employee who does her job.
The Pope should meet me
because I'm a state employee who does her job.
That's awesome. For all those with parents who love you so much, well, the Pope should meet me because my parents think I'm pretty awesome. From Leslie Kaura.
Leslie always comes up with really, really good ones.
And we had a great contribution from one of our long-term players that I think you and I both have an affection for.
Yes. Go right ahead, though. I know.
From Jeff Feet.
Yep, that's the exact one I was thinking of.
The Pope should meet me because 2 words, the beard.
The beard. Yeah, but that was a fun game. It was fun to see what people came up with. But it wasn't enough fun, David. We need to have more fun.
I agree. It's beginning to be kind of big movie season, where people start making their Oscar pushes. It's kind of a big time for movies. You got the blockbuster season and kind of the awards season.
Exactly.
I feel like we're in that push of movies. We just had The Martian come out. I think we should do something about the movies.
Yeah.
And we should mess with the movies a little bit, I think.
I'm with you. How about if we our first segment was really kind of about this messed up idea of God. Like
sure.
So what if we take that God, like GOP Jesus, and have GOP Jesus be in movies? Like, it can be the star of a movie or the producer or director of a movie.
And take actual movies and just kind of do a twist on them, almost like, and so it'd be like GOP Jesus presents Twister for your sins, or something like that.
GOP Jesus presents Harry Potter and the Handbasket to Hell.
Yes, exactly. All right, so GOP Jesus presents. So basically, GOP Jesus is your film company presenting us with an actual film with a twist.
Yes, so you take the film and just completely rework it so that GOP Jesus could have been the producer, the writer, the director, the starring, whatever it works. I think it could be a lot of fun, like a whole lot of fun.
A ton of fun. I think we should totally go for it. Let's do it.
You get bonus points if you make up a movie poster. All right, so GOP Jesus presents. Have fun with that one.
And to get your creative juices flowing, I say we drop a little bit of Freddie Fry and enjoy the tunes.
Yeah.